There was a very big interview on the BBC yesterday, on Sunday. That was with Laura Kuenssberg. It was Peter Mandelson, and it was his first interview since he was ousted as ambassador to the United States due to emails that showed he was in contact with the dead paedophile Jeffrey Epstein after his initial conviction. There were emails detailing that Mandelson had believed Jeffrey Epstein's stories, that these were false allegations, and Mandelson had vowed to stay by his side during this time. And after mounting political pressure, Keir Starmer decided that actually it wasn't good to have your US ambassador having been friends with a dead paedophile.
It's not good luck when you're mates with a dead paedophile.
It's not a great look, is it? But worse if the paedophile is alive. Now, look, it must have been a very confusing time for Peter Mandelson. He maintains that he had, we're going to get into the clips, we're going to show you a number of clips, and we're going to give you our little opinion on them. But I just wanted to start with my sympathies for Peter Mandelson, because it must have been very confusing to him traveling to Jeffrey Epstein's island, which was colloquially nicknamed and contemporaneously nicknamed Pedo Island. And to travel there, you had to take a flight on the Lolita Express. That must have been very confusing to him when the allegations came to light. Which is perhaps why he didn't bother to apologise during this interview.
Maybe he just thought Epstein was a big fan of Russian literature.
Yeah, Peter Mandelson has never read Nabokov. Like, he's no idea what it is.
Oh, it's a beautifully written novel, isn't it?
And a nice name for a plane.
The Lolita Express.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't want to get on the Lolita slow coach, would you?
No, you wouldn't. No, it'd take far too long to get what's it called? Little St. James? Yeah. Even that sounds a bit nonsense
for an island.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
well, actually, no, Little St. James doesn't matter, because as you're going to hear in some of these clips, Peter Mandelson was not aware of Epstein's dealings with young women because he is a gay man.
It checks out, really, doesn't it?
Should we play the first clip?
Do you want to take this chance to apologise to his victims for your association with him, which went years beyond his original conviction?
I want to apologise to those women for a system that refused to hear their voices and did not give them the protection they were entitled to expect.
Do you apologise for your association with him after his conviction?
That system gave him protection and not them. If I had known, if I was in any way complicit or culpable, of course I would apologise.
But you won't
for it.
For your association with him after his conviction.
But I was not culpable. I was not knowledgeable of what he was doing, and I regret and will regret to my dying day the fact that powerless women were not given the protection they were entitled to expect.
Did that clear things up for you, Laura?
Yeah, it cleared up that he doesn't want to apologise for his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein after his conviction, which, by the way, if you read the emails that they're talking about, they are so bizarre. This is after Jeffrey Epstein has been sentenced to prison for child sex offences, soliciting a minor. Mandelson says the day before Epstein began his sentence, "I think the world of you, and I'm so furious about what happened." It's beyond belief. He also quotes like Sun Tzu, The Art of War, for Jeffrey Epstein as well. I mean, like, strategy. You need to fight this.
It sort of reads like, did you ever watch one of those like really terrible, it might have been on TLC, but it might not have been that channel, of like women who form pen pal relationships with like men.
Yeah.
I don't know, Sean, do you want to just take us through this letter from 2003? This was it reads, just go from there.
Once upon a time, do you want me to do an impression of Peter Mandelson?
Well, do you want to sour your dulcet Irish tone?
No, I'd rather. I just think I'm going to undermine the gravity of it. Once upon a time, an intelligent, sharp-witted man they call Mysterious parachuted into my life. You would spend many hours just waiting for him to turn up. And often, no sooner were you used to having him around, you would suddenly be alone again, leaving you with some interesting friends to entertain instead. Or just some dogs to keep you company. He wasn't always so keen on them. But then he would parachute back in, very occasionally, taking you by surprise in some far-off places, or in one of his glorious homes he likes to share with his friends. Yum, yum. But wherever he is in the world, he remains my best pal. That's disgusting.
Can any of us say that we've written a similar letter to a paedophile?
Dead paedophile. Dead
He
paedophile.
wasn't dead at the time.
Yeah, it's a lot worse there, isn't it? Because he was alive then.
Yum, yum.
Horrible. Horrible
They were the
stuff.
friends.
Yeah.
No, this is the thing that's like a really crucial part of that letter, is that during that interview there with Laura Kuenssberg, he says that, you know, when he was on the island, he was normally on his own. There were a couple of people who were working on the island. Ghislaine might wander in and out. By the way, just a note there, Ian Hislop refers to her as Ghislaine, and I think he does that. I think intentionally. Right?
Who else does it is John Sweeney calls her Ghislaine, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Many ways to do it.
To be fair to John Sweeney, at the time when he was doing the Ghislaine podcast, he was very ahead of his time. People hadn't come around to this scandal, really. He was very ahead journalistically on that. It was a very good podcast. Anyway, back to the issue at hand. It doesn't quite make sense. He's telling Laura on one hand, Kuenssberg, not you, that...
He's told you before.
in private.
Yum, yum.
Square sausage. They, you know, that he wasn't really interacting with the people that Jeffrey Epstein brought around. But then that letter says something totally different. And, you know, I think the frustration that I have here is that either he's doing sort of political adept spin where he thinks he can say one thing and the public will lap that up, and they won't have any of the knowledge of the previous weeks of scandal that have unfolded before their very eyes, that everyone will just sort of forget in a blink of an eye and believe exactly what he's had to say. It's almost very Prince Andrew in essence, isn't it?
Yeah. I was thinking when I was looking at this that how he might have thought he was going to come out of this interview seems to be the exact same hubris as Prince Andrew had going into his interview. There is no way, because I think the interview starts with a conversation about Donald Trump and what it was like being the British ambassador to the United States. Surely you know that you're going to be asked about your relationship with a dead paedophile halfway through that interview.
Why would it come up?
It's the thing. It's the reason why you're not the ambassador anymore.
Are they going to make a dramatization of it on Netflix?
We were talking about it before, weren't we? You brought up the point about the Economist editor who'd said that many young people wouldn't be aware of all of the achievements that he'd had while he was working within the Labour Party, because of course he was the director of campaign coordinator. I could correct me if I'm wrong, people will, during, you know, on Blair's ascension in 97. So many young people won't be aware of the victories to Blairites that he achieved. Actually, I think if young people were cognizant of these quote unquote achievements, I think they would have a completely different, they'd have an even worse, more sour opinion.
And he was a horrible
I appreciate
politician.
what she had to say. You know, I appreciate what she was saying, that, you know, this has shrouded everything that he achieved. But actually, like, if you know, he was responsible for the introduction of, you know, or at least the messaging behind PFIs. He was the one who encouraged businessmen into the cabinet of Labour. He was the one who made the Labour Party almost small c conservative adjacent in its pursuit of Blairism. Not very popular with young people.
Well, I mean, that government was the government that Margaret Thatcher said was her greatest achievement as a politician. So I'm not sure how many young people knowing those two things would think Peter Mandelson did fantastic work in
I
government.
think young people might not also be cognizant that he was made to resign twice from the Labour government for his poor ethical decision making. And I think one of the things that was really clear from that birthday book letter that you read out, which Trump also wrote in that book, was how much reverence Peter Mandelson has for very wealthy and very powerful men, in a way that I think he has a track record of that clouding his decision making before. So the first time he had to resign from the Blair government was for an undeclared loan from a wealthy businessman that he used to buy a house. And the second time was because he contacted the Home Office on behalf of a billionaire seeking citizenship. And I think the way that he speaks as well in that Laura Kuenssberg interview about Trump, you hear that same reverence for wealth and power coming out. And that feels like something that's very fundamental to the sort of person that Peter Mandelson is.
I think the one thing that cannot be forgotten was that during the lead up to the election, he was phoning shadow cabinet ministers after their media appearances. So he was, I don't know where he was sitting. He might have been in an office or at home or, but whatever. That's not integral to the point I'm making. But anyway, he would watch these media interviews and then he would call them afterwards. And I brought this up on Good Morning Britain. I said, because I was challenged at the time when I'd said that Peter Mandelson was heavily involved in the Labour Party. And this is before that it was publicly known that he was. And I was challenged by someone who was very Labour Party adjacent as I was talking complete rubbish. And I 100% was not. I'd been in the presence of cabinet ministers when they had received these phone calls. And the reason I'm bringing this story up again is it lends itself to your point about him wanting to be adjacent to power at all times. He could see which way the wind was blowing, that Labour were going to get back into government, and he wanted to be a part of that. He's had his time. He served as a cabinet minister multiple times during the Blair government. He didn't, he's had his big public spats with Gordon Brown and nearly took him down, and all of these sorts of things. He didn't need to re-enter, but there's something insatiable about his personality that he just has to be in the room. And I think that that's what was going on here with Jeffrey Epstein. He saw him as this, incredibly influential financier who perhaps had a lot of dirt on other very important people. He could boast that he'd be on a plane with Bill Clinton, or, I mean, this is really boasting, but or out shooting with Prince Andrew. And I think that was attractive for him. And I'd have more respect for him now if he could come out and say that I just wanted to be close to him because he seemed important, than putting on this false this false narrative that actually they were just quiet mates.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be one of the other clips, isn't it, where he tries to push back, being like, well, I didn't really know him that well. And Kuenssberg is like, well, you called him in that letter, you call him your best pal. What are you on about? Should we watch another one?
Go on, let's do another clip.
You made clear when this story was running very hard that as a gay man, you had never been offered any kind of sexual favor. There were never any conversations at all.
Possibly some people will think because that I'm a gay man, I was sort of insensitized, or I wasn't attuned to what was going on. I don't really accept that. I think the issue is that because I was a gay man in his circle, I was kept separate from what he was doing in the sexual side of his life.
So what he's saying is Jeffrey Epstein was homophobic. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, he segregated me from all of the fun that he was having.
I was in the other room. I wasn't allowed to enter the
Honestly.
room. But I also just totally disagree. I would again like to pour cold water on that, because he also, he acknowledges in his emails with Jeffrey Epstein the conviction that he'd had and the allegations that were around him. So he wasn't completely separate to that part of his life. He was aware that there were relationships of some kind that had been, but apparently believed that they were false, but he was aware of it. So I don't believe that he was completely kept quote unquote separate, because the emails tell us different.
Yeah, well, that was the part, like Laura Kuenssberg asks a follow-up question there where she says, well, you were still in contact with him post-conviction. Did you not believe the women when the courts found him guilty of soliciting a minor? And Peter Mandelson just goes, no, I still believed him. He was really convincing.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're the US ambassador, you're a peer in the House of Lords. How much longer can Keir Starmer hold up that you should be allowed to sit in the peers when clearly your decision making is so strange?
But also, is he not a man of law by profession? So you would think that if the courts decided something, no matter how heinous or how small fry it is, it would then it would overpower whatever judgment you have.
Let's just get into the minutiae behind the Keir Starmer decision to still appoint him as US ambassador. So I thought there was mixed messaging from the Transport Secretary Heidi Alexander, who followed this interview. This was played in the Kuenssberg studio, and then Alexander was asked to react to it, and she had kind of mixed bag. There was a particular line that really grated on me where she said, at best he was very naive. And that really grated on me because it's, for God's sake, And then she sort of went back and forth because she was being pressed on whether it was the right decision or whether due diligence had taken place during the vetting process of Mandelson before he became the US ambassador. She said it was her understanding that the details were missing during the process to clear him for the ambassador role. Now, I'm not being funny.
We all saw photos of it.
Me, layman of the public, I would have been like, right there, man. He's in the picture.
Should we appoint Mandelson? I can't see anything on the table.
Yeah.
So
the pictures went, there's a birthday cake. Here, it's there.
Everyone knew this years ago.
Maybe because Peter in those photos looks so refreshed and relaxed.
After bathing next to him or something.
They only had the House congressional versions where everyone's face is blacked out, so you didn't know it was Mandelson.
She, she says she kind of, I want to do her justice. It's very difficult to do because there are points you can hear what she actually wants to say, and she is restraining herself because there's a point where she says, that him not apologizing is, I'm going to paraphrase here because I can't remember the exact syntax, but it was, this was a shame for all of the women who had experienced trauma at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein. And you think, just go with that line. Just go with that line. And if you can't stand by Starmer and the people who did appoint him, then I'm afraid you just have to say that, because what's going to be remembered in 10 years' time is that you were complicit in whatever has gone on here. And you have to be careful about what you say, what's gone on here, because it's litigious. But, just come out and just be clear about it and draw that line in the sand.
I mean, he's still a member of the government as well. He's in the House of Lords. He's got a cabinet role or a small ministerial role, does he not? I could be wrong on that, actually. So, but he hasn't lost the whip, is my point.
He hasn't lost the whip.
He hasn't lost the whip. How damaging do you think it is that do you think there's a point where he does lose the whip if something else comes out? Because there seems to be a lot there already that would have warranted it.
I think that the backlash and analysis of how this interview has gone, I think, could be the thing that pushes Keir Starmer to have to remove the whip from him in the Lords. Because I think it will mount public pressure, especially Peter Mandelson's refusal to apologise for continuing his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein post-conviction. But then on what you said about, at best, Heidi Alexander saying that at best Peter Mandelson was naive, I think that Keir Starmer appointed him as US ambassador specifically because of the fact that Peter Mandelson has a disregard for morals and a reverence and admiration and is good at dealing in pure power politics. And I think that's why Keir Starmer thought that Mandelson was a good match for Trump, because morality wasn't going to get in the way of how they dealt.
Do you think any part of it is to do with Starmer knowing that Trump and Mandelson were friends with Epstein?
That's a revisionist view of it, because that would seem sensible. I don't think that was the thought process.
I think it's more like, because Jonathan Powell is chief of staff to Keir Starmer now, and he wrote post-Blair government that book, The New Machiavelli, about how that government operated in terms of pure power politics. And I think that putting Mandelson as US trade envoy was a very Machiavellian thing to do.
Of course it was. They wanted to get him out of London. I think he was driving people crazy because he's insatiable in his quest to be involved. I just want to touch on something that you've said there, because I do agree with you about the sort of the Machiavellian style of politics that works well when you're on the main stage with someone like Donald Trump, particularly because there was a lot of fear around how he was going to play out his administration and what that was going to mean for the UK, especially because we're outside of the EU now, so our influence on the world stage has waned. I mean, Bush loved Blair because we were the gateway into Europe. that's not really the case anymore. Now, a lot of it is just sort of bells and whistles, right? Trump likes the United Kingdom because his family was Scottish and because he liked the Queen. But I wanted to just talk about this phrase that's bandied about with Mandelson, which was that he's a formidable diplomatic brain with political prowess. And I struggle with this because I think about what he did in the Oval Office with Donald Trump, and it was hailed as this huge success. We did not come away unscathed from the tariff war. You know, we left with higher tariffs than we went in with. You know, we still do have export and import fees that are attached now to goods that weren't there before. It wasn't the success as it was billed. We essentially got out with a wounded leg rather than being dead in the water. So if you're going to use a phrase like formidable diplomatic brain, I would expect you to come out with 0% free trade.
Masterstroke by Mandelson here. We still have one of our legs.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we've still got an eye. It's just so ridiculous. And, you know, there was also this phrase he used that really bothered me, which was pearl clutching. So he was talking about the Trump administration, who was being asked questions about that. And they were sort of alluding, I imagine, to what's gone on with ICE and the fatal shooting of a woman in Minnesota by one of those agents over the past week. And there's this sort of like quite reticent, it's sort of like it's an arrogance that Mandelson has in reaction to the point being brought up by Laura Kuenssberg, where he essentially is, you know, he pours water on the point by saying that, you know, you can't be pearl clutchers in this world. That's not pearl clutching. You know, if anything, actually, it's rather weak for Keir Starmer to not know how to react to that fatal shooting, or not know how to react when Keir Starmer wants to invade Greenland, or when Donald Trump wants to invade Greenland, or when Donald Trump is, you know, being extraordinarily rude to President Zelensky in the Oval Office, or when he's threatening to withdraw funds, or not even, you know, or giving up Diego Garcia and paying that extraordinary amount of money to Mauritius, and that's essentially for the Americans. You know, that to me is political weakness. And the pearl clutching that he is alluding to there, actually, it's just totally incongruent with. I can't quite phrase the point well enough.
But I mean,
you know what
like,
I'm saying?
yeah. But you see it kind of on full display when you've got Heidi Alexander was talking about Iran straight after that interview and how abominable the regime there is treating the people of Iran. But nothing has been said, to your point, about ICE raids, about the treatment of naturalized born American citizens, or the shooting of American citizens. And it is just because the United States has Britain over a barrel, and it's the one of the only countries in Europe that has consistently turned a blind eye to everything that Trump has been doing.
But it's fascinating, isn't it? Because when we were talking about vassal states, with, I can't believe the author's name has completely escaped me. Oh, we'll put it in the notes at the bottom. But it's a brilliant book, and
great interview as well.
It's really interesting because we're talking here about the US has the UK over a barrel. Actually, when you read that book and you look at how the UK finances the US, you know, every single transaction we do with Visa or MasterCard, which are the only two suppliers that you can use, really, and Amex, but it's also an American company. Every single time you make a transaction, that money gets shipped off to America. Most of the companies that we think are British or British owned are American owned. Most of the way that we trade or buy goods or do any form of commerce goes through the United States in some form. Even our social media companies, they are all out of Silicon Valley. You know, we are cash cows for the Americans. And I think if you had a change of political narrative or a change of political direction, you could have essentially the only reason why we're over the barrel and not the US is because we choose to be. We choose to give all of that money away and also lie over the barrel when it comes to foreign policy. If you brought a lot of that in-house, and God, it would take a hell of a lot of work, and you turned more towards the EU, fine, that might be extraordinarily upsetting to the global order, and I'm not suggesting that we do that tomorrow. But the power dynamic could be shifted.
Yeah. I know we're getting a bit far away from Mandelson now.
We
That
are,
is kind of the discourse in like European. Do you know what I've noticed? I've been getting a lot of.
It is what it is, and you've got to get on with it. And that's not the case.
Well,
actually.
there's a lot of people in on the mainland that are really engaging with that. I mean, Macron's been on the ground floor of that kind of realignment and having a greater Europe strategy.
Have you seen the digital currency?
Yeah, but like all of these things are kind of to exist alongside or against the United States as a means to not be so reliant on it because of how volatile it is in the US. And you see it where discourse, whether it's online, and it doesn't really get talked about much in the media, to be honest, because again, the narrative is that the UK and the US are bedfellows. There's no getting away from each other. But it's slowly becoming a greater narrative in the European Union that with powers like France, Germany, maybe not Spain, Italy, the UK involved in that as well. And then especially when you have the context of Ukraine involved in it and how those countries were kind of at the forefront of bringing Trump back to the table or trying to dilute what his proposals were for the peace deal. All of these things are mainland European countries trying to disalign from Europe, but it is kind of the UK that's holding the rest of them back in.
With the United States, not with Europe.
The Europe disaligning with the United States. Yeah.
But it feels like right now Starmer is just trying to spin every single plate to maintain a special relationship with the US, to keep building up Britain's own independent military spending, to also maintain good relationships with Europe and build on those, but also with Beijing as well, and make sure that we're doing good with China. And it feels like he's just trying to do everything at once and keep good relationships on all fronts and not rock any boat because it is so volatile.
It's like totally Mandelson. That's got his fingerprints all over it. And to what end? But Laura, I mean, he is a formidable diplomatic reign, would you not say? I mean, there's been only, a handful of sackings over his political career.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he's who we should look at as a model of what a Labour minister should be. I mean, he was hanging out with oligarchs at one point as well when he was EU Trade Commissioner. And then those oligarchs, or that specific oligarch, just so happened to have his aluminium company exempted from trade tariffs.
That's nice, isn't it?
Just coincidence.
I think that's really cool because at a time when British steel is fighting for its life, that seems like a nice...
You got to make sure that your mates are all right.
Well, of course, yeah.
First friends, first best pals, yum, then mates, and then the British public.
Pedophiles, oligarchs, British public.
He didn't really know it though, did he? He didn't really know him. It was
no,
the
not
end of their lives, to be honest.
He was in the room next door because he was gay, apparently.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with the oligarchs. Wasn't allowed in the same room. Yeah, he was on with a glass next to the wall. Would you
sat outside with the receptionist?
No tariffs. How long? I wonder if it's on Polymarket. Polymarket, yeah.
Oh, you're obsessed with Polymarket now.
I'm not me. What do you reckon? Mandelson, Labour Lord, for how much longer?
I hope not much longer, a couple months.
What do you reckon?
I don't think he's getting rid of him.
I'm with you. I'm somewhere in the middle. I think to the bitter end. I think there needs to be one more bombshell revelation. And then I think that there will be a week of turmoil in the press, and then I think Starmer will rescind the whip.
I don't think he has it in him to kill that darling.
Do you know what's cool though? Is that if he wanted to, he could go into the Lords now every weekday for the rest of his life and earn £300.
A dignified end to a career, I'd say.
I'd say a very dignified end. And also, you know, the number of positions that he's had, the pension that he's going to have.
Oh, come on.
Extraordinary, you know. Did you, total tangent, did you see that guy who's looking for a wife? The one who owns that estate?
No.
He's elder. He wants to have 2 sons to pass his estate on to. No Scottish women, sorry, Laura.
Oh, did he write that?
Is it like English women only?
Yeah.
Stop.
And he wants them to have like a shooting and driver's license. Because I read driver's license first and then I saw shooting and I was like, oh.
I'll slum it out for a little bit longer.
And it said like you must have proven track record of boys. And I was like, well, how do you know that you...
Also, that's on him, not her. to have boys, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? Like
Yes.
it's a genetic thing.
Yeah, because men carry both chromosomes and women carry double. Same.
God, never getting a biology lesson. Someone should go back and tell Henry VIII.
I know this was
Yeah.
I like that.
yeah.
Did you read that? Like, okay, then now we're on. Did you read that bit about Henry VIII's legs smelling so bad? Like, it was just so infected
What was it, gout
by
or
the end of his
something?
life. Yeah, but it was like open sport. It was disgusting, but it was
Oh,
like, it could be smelled like 2 doors down, 2 rooms down. And this would have been in Hampton Court Palace as well, so it's stone walls. What did
No.
his leg smell like?
Jesus, Henry VIII, smelly leg.
Anyway, Peter Mandelson was in the other room.
He couldn't smell it. 'Cause he's gay.
You can smell it because he's gay. If you'd like to hear us talking about Nadeem Sahawi, that's going to be on our Patreon. I'm also going to be talking to Anne Pettifer this week, who has written a book about global casino, which is sort of what we were touching on there about the US and its supremacy and about the way that certain people handle the financial markets. You might find that interesting. That'll be up later in the week. Anything you want to advertise, Laura?
Mm-mm.
No one else has done any work. Thank you.